Come on and give a shit.
It's a holiday one.
Oh, God.
All I want for Christmas is Squish.
So, how you been?
Good. Feverish, delirious, lovely. I don't
Sexy.
know, all the things. Tired. Wonderful.
Nice.
Happy now that I'm here and we're doing this, that it's the same week and we're actually doing it rather than having to move it again because it's been so chaotic lately for both of us.
It really has. I feel like life it always takes off and slows down at the same time as the holidays. So you're in this in between of whiplash. Like, it just feels like whiplash where it's, I need to slow down, but I'm going at like 70 miles an hour and I don't know how to stop.
Yeah. That's like a reoccurring dream I have.
Really?
Yeah. I started where I try to lucid dream and now I have crazy lucid dreams where I'm like, I realize I'm in the dream. I'm like, oh, we're not doing this game of like packing. And
just like
we're just going to go enjoy whatever's
lucidly
happening in this
like
place.
take an Ativan in the dream and just chill yourself out.
No, it's a weird thing is it used to be a lot harder to lucid dream. And then my mom passed away and it got a bit easier because whenever she shows up, I know I'm dreaming right away.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, cool. And we're having these conversations. And she's also like way chiller than she was in life. So it's, oh yeah, I'm dreaming.
This is dream mom.
And then now that her sister's also passed away and in the reoccurring dream, now it's this thing where I'm like hanging out. I get to hang out with my mom and her sister in my dream sometimes. And like,
that's so nice.
or I'm like, okay, what else does this place have rather than just the things that I'm stuck doing in a loop in that dream usually.
Dreams were a huge inspo for me in my story time, that you were there for that. But I feel like the dream space is like a really crucial thing to let yourself dabble into, and I feel like that's what meditating is.
Yeah, I've written a lot of lyrics based on dreams now. Yeah, and I've had like weird dreams that have come true and dreams about people and then told them about it, and it's been like a moment where they're like, you're a fucking witchy psychic bitch.
Hell yeah.
My friend Scram particularly, I just tell him, now I just text him and I'm like, my Scram sense is tingling because I just think randomly about, it's happened multiple times and times where he's been like, I'm like, are you here? And you just didn't tell anybody because I had a dream that you were here, but you were like keeping it on the down low. And he was like on his way here, but he was just like back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's happened multiple times with him and other people. So it's just a thing. Mm-hmm. I have a crazy belief in like the potential that dreams hold to change us as well.
Yeah, any space where like all of the rules of logic and reason disappear, it's like you could really take advantage of that space and dive into some more fun ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm. If you ever have one of those dreams where if you lucid dream, it's a weird dream tip. It works for me. Don't know if it works for anybody else, but you know when you like can't move at a normal speed in your dreams? Yeah. One of the things that I did in a dream once was like one of the like things I had locked in the lucid dreaming like moments was like just pulling yourself off of things and objects and bouncing off the wall like a monkey. You're like a monkey swings through the trees. You're just it would be like, okay, if I'm moving at a snail speed, okay, we're gonna jump onto this wall and then we're gonna jump onto that wall and then we're gonna swing around the doorway, and you're just avoiding the ground. It's like how ground is lava. You're just moving through the air.
Yeah.
And that is like how I move through dream space when there's like that slow like thing, like that molasses thing of like you can't move. That's and it works. It's really funny.
I used to tell my friend when we would both go to sleep at the same time, I'd be like, if you meet me in my dream, meet me by the orange bridge.
In my dreams.
And I thought that was a really cute thing. Is if you think of the friend in the dream or you see an orange bridge, it's try and go towards it and see if we'll meet. And I love the idea of meeting Kady in my dream and you're just fucking bouncing off the ceiling onto the walls, off the couch. Oh, and she's back in the air.
I've definitely ran into friends in dreams because like at festivals there's a group of friends who'd be like, you always meet front left or front right or whatever, like there's a certain corner of the stage we'd always meet up at festivals. And so in dreams, when there's a festival involved in the dream, I know that if I go to a certain corner of the festival grounds, like in my subconscious will serve me up a group of humans that I love because that's just what I'm used to in the festival space. It's very funny.
I love that there's like a language that's transcended, because like when you're in a festival headspace, you're not checking a phone, you're not going to be able to like contact people. You have to have very like basic ground rules, and those ground rules are so solid that they're in your dreams. They're like deep in your subconscious.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you
good.
can have, just like common like dialogue with people no matter what. Yeah, so I've been on a bit of a journey and I wanted to talk about it on the pod because it directly affects my opinions about the Victoria art scene and music scene.
Oh,
And
tea coming in.
my role here, I'm going to do this in the least like sharing of specifics as possible because
That's
it's
always
not
tough. I think about that too when I'm telling stories. I'm like, oh, should I leave out?
Okay, so the whole thing, I feel like the whole theme that I wanted to talk about today, and I'm not forcing us to talk about this theme, but it's definitely I've been sitting with it for the last little bit. It has been judgment and like where these judgments come from.
Our
and
own or other people's, because sometimes ours is worse.
oh my God, just so much.
Oh yeah, judgment. We did have this conversation a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I know where I am now. Remember, because you were in the bathroom and I was like, what are we going to talk about today? And I forgot that we had a topic locked and loaded and I just had a fever. Forgot my life.
It's okay. This whole thing started from a manic episode. I had a manic episode a couple weeks ago.
I'm sorry. Your version of manic episode and my version of manic episode are two totally different things. I just picture like, the shit I grew up with when my dad would have a manic episode.
Like,
but I know
long,
that's not what you
I
mean.
know,
But I'm like imagining you going on the craziest manic episode.
My manic episode lasted about 7 hours, and I felt like I had a hangover for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was an intellectual manic episode where I just like all my brain, I think it was like I had gotten my first decent night's sleep in a couple weeks, and then I had full access to my brain for the first time.
Your brain was like,
in a
I have
while.
opinions and I have energy.
And I needed to yell them at people, and including my wonderful partner who sat with me after I came home from an art piece, and I was fuming. And I was so mad because I was like, I had just sat in this art piece performance for a certain amount of time and I learned nothing. I didn't see a single new thing or new idea or new way of communicating things. And I just felt like my time hadn't really been taken seriously. And I think when I'm a performer and I don't feel inspired by something, I just get mad because I have been on stage so much and I value an audience so much that I'm like, I want to make this really good and earth-shattering. Now, this is all coming through a very biased lens. These were all the unfiltered angry thoughts that I'm having. I'm going to get to my rationalization of people are allowed to make art that's not amazing all the time.
When do you
make
for
the
you
art.
though for you is the
Yes.
reason that you seek out art
But that's
and
why these
experience other people's art to be educated, like to find something to learn in it every
that's how
time.
you figure it out. Totally.
But like, no, but
And they
is
were-
that your
was
goal
young.
every time? There's not a time where you're just like, I'm just want to sit and watch something for the sake of watching something. If I go to like my friends' kids' musical theater performance, I'm still like, this is great, but like I'm probably not learning much. Although there are things teenage
I just
musical
felt like
theater
I
people
had
can teach me for
seen
sure.
it and heard the same story so many times in the same way.
I get that. Yeah.
And
I'm just curious on that level if that's like your main drive when you're absorbing other
wanna be
people's
able to
art is you're like,
connect.
I want to learn something,
Or see a
I
new
want
perspective.
to be inspired, or I want to understand you more
yeah.
through
yeah.
this. And that's like always the goal usually for you.
It's one of my goals,
Yeah.
at least to just have a new thought to leave with at the end of the day, or like to feel inspired or connected to it in some way. And I unfortunately couldn't really feel any of those things. And I think I had myself in like a bit of a pessimistic like headspace because I had left like another friend's show to go to this. And I'm very fortunate that I'm fucking privileged as shit that all of my wonderful friends are really talented very easily, or they put in a lot of work. So when I go to see like more amateur stuff, I found myself very judgmental, and then I was like freaking out because I hate feeling judgmental. I love supporting the arts. I love like loving the art, even the bad art. I'm a clown, dude. Like I don't take my art that seriously, and I don't think that all of my art has ever been good either. And it was just like a freaky thing. But then I also was like feeling really passionate about it, and I was like, I'm a little nervous that Victoria, and I've heard this from people who've lived here for a long time, they call it the velvet coffin because Victoria.
I've heard a lot of things about Victoria, but I think that phrase is a new one.
I learned that from someone who's lived here for decades, and it's mostly because it's so comfortable and we stay in our little comfort bubble, and then all of our art and like drive comes to die here because there's a lot of mediocrity that gets accepted. And again, this is super pessimistic. This is not all people. This is not the whole thing, but this is a perspective of it.
It can be there can be versions of that depending on your like your access to the ability to leave.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, like,
we're on an island.
The next step is to like branch out and be somewhere else, to do somewhere else, but like the cost of either touring or establishing yourself somewhere else permanently is, especially with the cost of living here as it is, like it can be difficult. So I feel like sometimes it can be like the comfort thing, and then sometimes it can be like what's that torture device that's like a coffin but it has all the sharp shit in it, you know what I mean, and they squish you, which it's like that. It's like a velvet coffin or like the pointy torture thing, because it's like you're stuck one way or another. You're either comfortable or you wish you could leave, but you have no choice because you can barely afford to live here in the first place.
I know. And I love living here, so to have any like doubt in my mind about Victoria freaks me the fuck out, because this is my home for life. I love this place.
Yeah, I love Victoria too.
I want to stay here long term.
I've had doubts. I've had many moments of doubts. I've had times where I want to leave. I've had so many times where I want to leave, but again, can't. Like, it's my situation is just not feasible. I don't. No. And my dad, he's one of the like I've lost a lot of people in my family already, so I'm like, I don't really want to like.
No. Don't
maybe I'll move somewhere else after he's gone. But I just feel like it's one of those things where you go through these phases of out in the place that you live, and especially when you're seeing other people too. I've seen people that Victoria chewed up and spat out in a shitty way, and the minute they went somewhere else, they were thriving. I get that, and also because sometimes they never found that comfort coffin.
Yeah,
they were all, because there's so many things about our scene where there's like little pockets of different scenes, and then there are still people who like navigate the outskirts trying to find their place and never really feel that sense of support or welcome from the and that can sometimes be a good thing, because being overly comfortable can put you in a stagnant kind of like placid mind space, and I don't think there's any like shame in seeking out that comfort. Like, I'm in it for life for a reason. Like, I've never felt so like cozy in a place, but that is because I'm surrounded by a lot of people that think the same way that I do. And then I was, sitting in this headspace being like, wow, I haven't learned a new thought today, and I just put a lot of effort and money and energy out into the world, and I was hoping to be like inspired in some way. And I was like, okay, what is my response to this? Because I'm not leaving Victoria. I love this place. So how do I like make this like change that I want to see? And then I had this like 7-hour rant session with Isaac where we got each other really hyped up because we both felt this way and we feel this way sometimes. And ideally, the goal is to be able to stay here and grow as an artist still, and to shift and challenge yourself. And then in that, you'll challenge other people to come along with you. There's a lot of open-minded and creative people here, and they're gonna hop on board with that stuff. There's more and more. This is something I've said to people before. Like, you're not finding this space, and it's common in folks who are othered. Like, I've felt it as someone who's larger. I've felt it and seen it happen a lot in the queer community, and felt it myself navigating my own queerness and stuff. But it's like it's the thing of, if you can't find that scene or whatever, then create it, and that is what you're doing. Like, you're slowly doing that, and but it's like one of those things where, because I get that frustration too sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I can see it makes like XYZ, if we just do this, then this will be so much better for the community and the thing as a whole and whatever. I get that way about accessibility sometimes too, where I get frustrated before I think through all of the like things, where I'm like obviously in my case it's an easy like 1, 2, 3 of like, there are loops and costs and things that like mean that it takes longer to make certain things happen than my brain wants them to be happening. And with our scene, I feel like a big part of I feel like, yes, as far as what that person said who's been here for decades, for sure. It's a true statement, for sure.
It's
There's
a perspective.
It's a perspective.
One perspective.
And there's a lot of people who do just like vibe in that, like comfortability and like that, whatever. And there's people who like their brains never let them really be comfortable for long. And there's like, you know,
It probably
so
happens everywhere.
and I mean,
the factor of it
I
being-
feel like it happens. You get that sense anywhere you spend for a long time. I feel like because that's why a lot of people like romanticize being somewhere else. Like when I moved here, I thought Victoria was the bee's knees, and I didn't know why everybody wanted to fucking move to Montreal and Vancouver. I was like, I just came from Ontario, and this place is dope.
Yeah.
Why do you want to leave?
Yeah.
And now I've spent years here. I still love it. I still don't want to live in Montreal and Vancouver, but. I mean, I like Vancouver sometimes, but I'm not a big city person, and I do see why people want to leave after. You know, that's the thing. It's just one of those things that we go through in our
I think it's
and communities.
very natural to feel restless in a world where we've been provided all of the ample opportunity to move as humans. We are a fluid species, especially in Canada. We have a lot of freedoms and rights, and let's like trying not to have the scarcity mindset of the more I focus on what isn't here, everything else always, the grass is greener everywhere else, right? But I feel like I've learned two things from this, and number one is, how do I make this change happen here? And I think a lot of that's going to come from traveling elsewhere as like artistic research. Isaac and I want to do that. We don't want to move anywhere else. We want to go out and make cool connections and learn and push ourselves and challenge ourselves and like just basically be sponges out in the world, and then bring it back home and share that with the people here to enrich where we are now.
That's something I would love to do more of too.
Totally.
And then, again, like the accessibility to it is sometimes an issue, but also made me think of the fact that one of the things that helped me continually appreciate Victoria was being on the side of working with festivals that bring people from everywhere. Yeah. And like meeting people from all over.
How do we enrich where we are?
And hearing what they think of our scene. And they're like, yeah, like there's things that Victoria doesn't have because it's not a huge market. It's not a big place, but, and it's on an island. It's not as easy to tour quickly to other places, whatever. Totally. But you have this thing that like we don't see in a lot of places. You have this community, you have this da-da-da, like there's stuff. There's like, I hear from a lot of people from all over that there's like this magic about the Victoria music scene and art scene. Yeah. And there's this sense, I've had so many bands that's like I've met through Scottfest that are like, oh, we'd move here if we could, and we joke, and I've got lifelong friends that have come from like Shrika and stuff, like just to play once, and we just like it resonates. It off, and it's and there's some of the best like experiences I've had for helping me like frame how I look at like my life in this space and stuff, and just like really appreciate and value what I've come from. Basically the inverse of traveling for artistic but like seeking out artists who are here from other places and learning their
changing your perspective.
And like seeing welcoming how they experience Victoria. Even Montreal, even from a friend of mine who plays in a band who's been around a long time in Montreal, was saying, you know, voice you would do great out here, but you wouldn't like it. And I was like, why? And he was like, because there's just the community thing is not the same. He said it's very competitive. I'm sure like I'm the type of person who I believe you can make community anywhere. Community starts with you, and if you build community around you and seek it out and invest in connection with the people that you think are going to make
there are a lot of things
with you, then you can build it anywhere. But that is definitely something I've heard.
There's a lot of things about Victoria that make community flourish really quite nicely. I think there's a lot of young people. There's a lot of people in between graduation or like being a student and before that they're like locked down into a family life, let's say, and they haven't fully slowed down, but island life provides you a bit of stillness and peace to get in touch with yourself and then find your voice and then share that. And there's a lot of people here willing to receive it. And I always say that like Victoria is the perfect size of a city where it's like, it's small enough where like, you know, everyone, but it's big enough that there's like enough inspiration and like drive and like energy to get shit done, basically. Yeah. But
I also think there's on the fact that I think COVID definitely had something to do with fucking with what we find in our art scene and in general, and also the sense that we feel the need as people more and more to have constant stimulation from everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like not necessarily everything is going to stimulate you. Some things are just there to be like amusing or whatever.
Yeah, then that kind of does lead into my second learning from all of this is like when I'm mad that I'm not seeing something externally, I'm really mad that I'm not feeling it internally, right? And I feel like all judgments come from a place of self-judgment first. And we only have our own perspectives to base things off of. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm mad probably because I'm not getting this thing that I'm searching for around me. And how selfish of me to expect it to just be given to me. It needs to come from me. I need to, like you said, with find your own scene. It's find the challenge within myself that I'm looking for. That's not a responsibility I should be putting on all the people around me who are just doing their goddamn best as well. And I was like, I refuse to judge a motherfucker who like put time and effort into writing a piece and putting a piece together and got up there and did the work. And that's why I felt so wrong to be mad about it. But I was like, I do want to listen to this anger and I want to like have it teach me something. And then thankfully that gave me such like energy and drive once I got over the hangover of thinking that many thoughts in one go. Oh my God, my brain was like hurting.
Yes, welcome to my world. That's why I'm exhausted all the time. My brain just does that to me on regular.
But I wrote that story because of it. And it was like my response to, okay, how do I create this thing? And I changed my art form just the littlest bit and tried something new, and thankfully was given a really beautiful space to share that new idea right away. And it was so validating and it felt like a full circle moment. Instead of just sitting here and being like, people are not making cool art around me, I should get the fuck out. It's no, bitch, sit down and make the cool art you want to see and be brave enough to do what that person did and perform it and put it out in the world and get feedback and learn how to make it better. And yeah, I felt like that was a positive response to all of this negative thought process. And it's like, I'm really trying to use judgment. And I heard this really cool quote recently that was like, someone was using their doubt as a really good guide, because when we doubt things, it's forcing you to just analyze a little bit longer and be critical a little bit longer.
The same way like your anxiety can sometimes is like more is, you know, their protection mechanism, and sometimes
there's a balance.
There's balance. Like this is not for people like me who have anxiety disorders. Like, but in some cases, because I am a very heavily intuitive person, like in some cases, and there I can now kind of parse apart the different anxieties, because there's a subtle like anxiety where it's positive. Like my gut feeling is telling me something is off, like where it might not necessarily always be positive, but it might be warning me of whatever. And there's other times where it's like, is this my body warning me of something, or is this my body using that to trick me into avoiding things? Because a lot of the times what comes with the anxiety disorder is feeling like everything is a threat to your safety. And so you do nothing and you freeze. So it's like the balance between like picking it apart and knowing, okay, this is my body telling me that sketchy man is probably a sketchy man, and then there's like my body telling me that if I leave the house today at all, it's going to be a bad day. Those are two different things.
It's like the rational versus the irrational.
Listen to the other, but they're both telling you something.
They are.
One might be that you forgot your meds that day, or that you need to sleep more or eat protein or whatever. Because for me, my anxiety spikes if I'm not taking care of myself to a certain degree. It's worse. So
there's definitely such a conversation of like, we are judgmental creatures and we are anxious monkeys. And I like taking it again back to like our physiological state, which is we had to use and rely on our intellectual abilities to create the worst case scenario and know how to plan for it, because we didn't have the physical like ability to fight back against a tiger that's attacking us. We had the forethought of building like a safe enough location where we could live and reside, and we like worked together, so we had tribes. And that anxiety brain is there like for a reason. It helped us teach ourselves a lot of things. But I do think there's like constructive anxiety and there's destructive anxiety.
There's like, okay, like let me map out what might happen if I going on a hiking trip in the woods. Smart. Let me map out the worst case scenario of every social event I go to. Not smart. That's not necessary for my brain to do to me.
Yeah, it's destructive. It's like inhibiting you from doing the things that actually bring you joy.
And that is why I blast musical theater into my brain sometimes. Shut it up. There are certain musics There's musics that work. I did try the Wicked soundtrack recently because I was giggling and thinking about how you were like, really, the Greatest Showman. And I was just like, let me see if Wicked will do it. And there were some good tunes in it, but I was like, no, it just doesn't keep the motor going. Because some songs that will just...
No hate to the Greatest Showman. I just don't
They've been constructed in a way that for a brain like mine, it shuts everything up. And I can,
that's awesome.
And I can have one thought that
that's
I
beautiful.
can have the like one.
And you
main
probably
train
attached a beautiful like connection to it, like a personal relationship.
Well, yeah,
to
there's
the
obviously
too.
The Kiala Settle song. This Is Me is like an anthem for life because it's so good. You know, one song where she's the bearded lady.
Oh, I know.
You know
yeah,
that?
it made a lot of sense when I heard you like that. I just can't fuck with Hugh Jackman's voice.
Yeah, it's Hugh Jackman.
And I'm
That's
a Les
cool.
Mis nerd too.
Okay, but also there's send you a link to the version of the album where a bunch of other people do the songs.
Yes,
because it's
the
good.
songs
But
are great.
also just watching the thing that. Yeah,
Whoa.
exactly. The thing that won me over is that the thing that really took me over the edge because I was already won over. I grew up watching musicals with my family, so there's other nostalgia attached to it, and it's part of where I learned to love music. But I was watching the video on YouTube where I've shared this so many times, so people who know me are just gonna laugh when they hear this. Is like, oh yeah, she made me watch.
Your
this.
friends know the
They know
URL
this.
off by heart.
Oh, probably. Yeah, I've shared it a lot.
YouTube
But
dot
they
XRX backslash.
I think Meta once didn't let me share it because I like shared too much. I thought I was spamming people or something. They're like, fucking calm down, okay? We know it. You love Kiala Settle. Get over it. It's impactful. It's amazing. I'm shit you not. It's fucking so good. So there's
It better be good.
There's the green lighting thing where like they do a performance for the people who are going to fund the project, and so it's like it's just a shot of them in the practice room with the singers and and she makes Hugh Jackman go from eating an apple to crying.
Yeah.
And they intro the video by talking about how she was so self-conscious in general about the whole thing that she was like kind of being quiet and hiding behind.
Oh,
the
I got
stand.
chills.
And they were like,
that
gets us the money. You gotta own it.
Yeah.
And she owns it so hard that one of the co-writers of the song, he's playing the piano in the background, and you can see him getting up slowly and being like, oh my God, it's happening. Oh my God, it's happening how I imagined it. And he's so stoked because all the energy that he wanted to happen in the song is happening when they need it to happen to get the green light. And it's and watching him go from like sitting and playing it on the piano to like practically like balls of firing like all over the place because he's just like so amped. That is really cool. And just watching the entire cast around her react to how powerful it is really fucking cool. And that is like one of my favorite things, not only about musicals but about musical theater and theater in general, and like group art projects, like working in groups, bands, and collaborating with other people. There's
something
this
magical.
moment, there's this magic moment
magic.
where like you nailing something can have just the same effect of power on everyone in the room as it does on you.
Yeah.
Because they've been waiting for this moment to happen. You know, there's like it's a fucking cool.
It's literally, if you ever get the chance to go see those shows live, bro.
Yeah, I can see that live. It'd be crazy.
Also, being in those shows, I was really lucky to have an epic high school musical theater program, and it was a magical experience.
We did not. My high school put all their money into a baseball academy.
Fuck off.
Oh yeah,
baseball.
Yeah. It was a terrible high school experience. I hated it. It was the worst. Screw you, Lambert Park.
Yeah, but those faces have
just
just come.
The choir. Shout out though to the choir teacher and the English teacher for being human beings.
But
Welcome back to our little segment, Have You Heard, where me and Tash show each other songs that we love from our community, discover new music together, and also show it to you. We show little 30-second teasers to encourage you to go and check them out yourselves and find and support our local music scene. All right, this time around I reached out to Lady Phil in the Hard Times, to see if it was all right to share a little clip of one of their songs. This song is called High With Me, and it's a good vibe. And Lady Phil is a wonderful vocalist in town with R&B skills and the ability to do vocal runs like nobody's business. So please go and check out the other songs that they have online, or if you see their name somewhere playing live, go support them. And this is High With Me. We hope you enjoy it.
So I'm gonna go now, 'cause I'm working on my grind, growing up, sitting under the stars. Ain't gonna waste my time, wonder where the fuck you are. I could bring you up. I could show you some real damn juicy loving. Yeah, if you're down and get high with me.
Isaac has this theory where he talks about how a lot of people stopped going to church, and church was the place where we all would get together and sing together. We would do our hymns together.
I used to love gospel
It's
music.
so important.
That was one of my favorite things about church was the singing.
Musical theater.
And musical theater has this church element
Took
because
that space.
It's also this. There's a similar thing between gospel and music, theater music, and the way that they are built to this slow building emotional crescendo. They both do that to give you a place to feel emotions safely, and you can feel and ride out an entire emotional experience from the start to end of a song, and it's allowed. No one questions it, no one judges it. You can be the hardest man in the world, and if you're singing a certain gospel hymn or whatever, or watching a certain performance, it'll bring a tear to your eye, and no one's going to say a second thing.
And that's been an art form people have been doing in time memorial. Like I really
think
feel
all
like
the
all
time
of the
that if
voices coming together, and like the clapping and the chanting of it all, and how like spiritual
I would love
it
a church
gets.
without the religion. Like I would love. I joke about this all the time about how if I like. I mean, we joke about it being like a cult, but I always joke about starting a church because I keep applying to be a marriage commissioner, and they keep saying no because I'm not old enough or whatever. They like retired people basically, but like people keep asking me to marry them, so I want to be able to do it legally.
Squish church, and it's called Squirt.
Squirt. Welcome to Squirt. Preach, praise the music. But I feel like I could totally. I've spent so much time in churches.
Kady, I would go to your church. Hell yeah.
I could impersonate, like do like a great, like do a whole thing. But I miss the music, and there is like, it's a performance in some senses too, because the way they preaching and like the delivery, it's a similar. It's a similar
the humans connect to
style to like when people speak spoken word to you and they embellish certain things and you feel certain things. Preaching is very similar to that. It's a very smart way that they built these things.
There is an element there that has been lost, and whenever we all get together and jam and we're all in a room just free flowing singing, that's as close as I get to it.
That's as close as I feel to the like good vibes of like choir and stuff from church, because like I miss the music and I miss the community picnics and things that we do and the gatherings and stuff. Those things were really great.
It has been supplemented in our lives.
Yeah, we still have. That's the thing, and I think that's part of why I seek that out, because like it's like the good bits without the bad bits. You know, take the good bits of something and you're like, okay, yeah, this is what I liked. I want to find more of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that like we're really lucky in the ways that we do have those elements as well. And one thing is have a listening episode where you and I just go deep off the deep end with sharing our favorite musical theater songs.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Because it is really powerful
it's
shit.
So powerful. And like we could do musical theater and gospel tunes too, because there's some great gospel tunes. And like just every denomination, like there's some denominations where I'm like, okay, you're singing a little very dulcet tones over here, Catholics, but like it's you know what I'm saying? But like if you're in like a, you know, an evangelical church or a Baptist church, or like, you know, getting some good music, you're getting some good tunes.
Absolutely.
No shade, maybe there's some Catholics.
But that's ironic that it's like
the
Catholics that are the least maybe like emotional with their music, because there's like that kind of shame narrative.
They're saving it for the
saving it for the next life.
No, what's the confessional?
Confessional, absolutely. But like I think it's just so natural. It's so natural for humans to want to connect when someone's like up there communicating emotion, and we need that, and that's why we need the arts, and that's why we need to get together and just emote and be like real and raw. And like when you sing, you're all real and raw at the same fucking note. You're literally reverberating your body at the same frequency as the people around you.
There's like scientific studies behind it. I'm sure I've read something once about the effect that like gospel and stuff has on us, and part of it, what they're saying, is a factor
just
that
singing.
Like everyone doing it together on the same, like, you know, they're doing it in the same frequency, and such a power, and because it's also that many voices in one room, you know, even in a jam that's full of people, you're gonna have like I went to some big churches, like I went to churches where there were hundreds of people singing the same song at the same time, you know. One of the biggest crowds I sang in front of was like a Christmas church service that was like packed full of people, you know.
And it's so important.
And my dad in church,
and
that
it's
was how
sad
started.
some of that stuff's been tainted because people don't obviously connect to the religion for very valid reasons, and it's like
Super
you need to
valid
be able
religious trauma in the house.
you need to be able to disseminate the religion from all of the beautiful things that come together when community is being given a space and being given the accountability to show up to that space.
The only
once
place
a month.
they have that, and so like all the power to them. Everybody do whatever you want. That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the learning about everything else that helped, because like my mom was very pushy about the church, and my dad was like, okay, at a certain age you guys can choose for yourselves.
Yeah.
But I remember knowing that like to convince my mom to leave me alone about it, I was gonna have to really back my shit up, you know. And so I found the portion of the Bible where it said to like go and like learn about other people's religions, so that when you preach to them at God, you preach to them from a place of understanding or whatever. Yeah. And so I was like, if I'm gonna like share the gospel or whatever you want me to do, like I was really not a fan of it. Like she was hardcore. She was that mom who put Bible pamphlets in kids' things at Halloween, and then we would try to like sneak candy so we didn't get egged or something, you know. So it was brutal, dude. It was brutal. My brother is still healing childhood trauma by buying toys for his son that she got rid of as kids, like to a level that my sister's joking about how it's a compulsion, like it's a like, you know, because it was a very triggering thing where she like went hard Christian, decided a bunch of stuff was secular, got rid of a bunch of stuff from the house. When you go hard in anything, and it was just it made us resistant. And also it was a trauma response. She was trying to heal some stuff and fix some stuff, but she took us to a lot of weird situations. We even went to something called Toronto Blessings in the 90s, which is like mass in tongues laying of hands situation. It was the closest I say we ever got to like actually being in full on cult situations, because there was like people laying hands and like feeling the spirit and like convulsing on the ground, but like en masse. And there's videos on YouTube.
It's fascinating, and I think that's literally that's like mosh pits are the exact same thing in my mind.
Similar, yeah. I guess I never thought about it that way, but
y'all want to connect to that stuff.
It's interesting because the more that I learned, the thing that helped me sort of rate the things I like. The things that made me feel connected to something in the religious space and the music and whatever, learning just how much of it is stolen from other cultures and repurposed to suit their needs, in my experience, because it depends what religion you're following. Also, obviously, if you're following an older practice, then they might have been the ones being stolen from. But my family, my mom's dad immigrated from Lithuania, and so there's a shit mix of religions in my family. Like I had a grandpa who was Catholic. My dad's mom was Christian Scientist for like luckily we didn't have to hear much about that situation, but then my mom went straight into the like hostile evangelical Christian stuff. And so but like in the heritage situation, you know, we've like Jewish ancestors from Lithuania, we have Catholic ancestors, like all this other stuff, and also Lithuania is very old pagan. So dude, I've been looking into all of these different things. I've researched all these different things. I already felt it's all the same story. Did you drawn to in belief systems as a kid, but didn't have words for it. Like there were these things that I felt weren't dark or bad because evangelicals said they were, and I always just felt like it didn't make sense. And then because to me it felt like, well, these pieces that connect to those pieces, but you're telling me they don't go together. And then once I learned, I was like, it's because they do go together, but you just cherry picked those pieces and put them in this religion, and you take solstice and call it Christmas, and you take Ostara and call it Easter, and all these other things. And it's just and so the same thing goes for like the underlying beliefs and values and whatever are very similar throughout every belief system, where, you know,
which brings me to like human nature is the same in every situation. Like there's an element of like human nature wants to be good, and we want to be moral, and we want to treat each other with respect. And that's why the stories and so many of the religions like are very similar. There's just like a different way of doing it. And we've all been fucking stealing them from each other and like trying to customize it to your own version because you want to be able to relate to it.
Well, yeah, and I feel like with the Bible, they're like, oh yeah, well, there's proverbs and stories of this Eastern religion over here. That's a good idea, but let's do that with a twist, and we'll act like it's all
But then
fully real,
condemning
and you have to
everyone
follow
else,
it
I
like the
know.
book. You gotta
Anything
follow it like
absolute.
this needle of a sword, and whereas it's
Which
like
never goes
in
well.
other religions, they're like, no, this is a parable that you interpret that helps you learn something. This isn't supposed to be taken
Well, it's
word for
because
word.
part of human nature, while we want to be these good, perfect, like, beings, is we're so invaluable, and we can learn from that if we're curious. And it's weird that they want everything to be this like rigid structure. They don't want you to be curious. They don't want you to question anything. And it's like, how do we actually heal from? It's like you can only be curious about the things that I'm specifically telling to you in this one-way channel. That's just so backwards.
And you
to
only
me.
heal if you give it up to God. That's
Yeah.
it. So that's the thing. You just gotta lay all your burdens down, and you'll be fine. Now, growing up as a kid with depression and a bipolar dad who was in and out of the hospital, and a mom who was undiagnosed mental health and was constantly having mood swings, and a brother who had anger issues and all sorts of other things.
You
and
needed to.
I was like,
reason?
yo, I'm laying these burdens down, bro. You chill?
Take
Or
it.
I'm like praying out the window every night, and like, and I found that like that definitely didn't help my mental health. But so it was like,
You don't say.
religion is not a help when you have a mental health issue. It's like I mean, maybe for some it is. Like
Religion, church, help,
I'm
though?
saying that for me it was that my own intuition about things led to something that was actually a
Deeper.
real tangible thing that existed before this belief system that was pushed on us. And so I'm like, okay, there's a reason I feel drawn to this. And then my brain goes, as it does, down hyperfixation rabbit holes. I'm like, oh, is there like connection? Are we genetically drawn? This whole study about genetic memory, it's one of my favorite. I go down that rabbit hole.
I love thinking about that shit.
It's just, and it talks about how we can sometimes be connected to certain things based on our genetic ancestry or experiences our ancestors have had.
Yeah.
And there's even, I think I told you about this before, where they did like a study on mice. There's even like physical studies done on like how generationally we experience things, even if we were not there for the experience itself. And so I think the thing is, gathering as community helps. Church did this really smart marketing thing where they were like, we're the only ones who can provide that. The place that can provide that community healing. But that's not true. Gain that and that's the thing that artists have this amazing blessing of, because by default, when you're an artist, there is community, because you gotta eventually do something. Unless you're a solitary artist who just likes to do it for the practice by yourself, there's an inevitability that you're going to collaborate or share it or whatever, and that's going to lead you to a group of people in a community, or you're going to seek out to learn a new skill. You're a painter, you want to be better at shading, or you want to be better at forms versus whatever, then you're going to go seek that out, find a class, you're going to meet people, you're going to, boom, community. It happens without you even thinking about it. And a lot of people, they don't have that, and and they don't have that default community to go find, and so church becomes that. Or for some people, like chat rooms become that, video game live gaming rooms become that. I'm sorry, I'm not a gamer, so whatever the thing I said is probably gonna make somebody laugh, but
yeah, I think there's like a part of me that's hopeful that, so I went to an event in a church last weekend. It was like a comedy event, and I was like scouting all of these churches as like venues, because I'm like, I'm hoping that
Quadra?
No, that was more North City, but
Because the one on Quadra is nice for a venue.
That's the cool thing, is like these churches are still there, and some of them are wanting young people to come in and use them as ever they want, and I feel like that would be a really healing way, and it is a healing way, because it does happen.
It has been for me. I've had a genuine experience with the first met on Balmoral and Quadra, because we did Psych and Soul there for a show, and then recently we did the Busada thing there, and like churches often do make me feel uncomfortable even just being in them sometimes. So now after everything, but
there's a lot of weird
discomfort
discomfort
for other things.
I was raised fully atheist, but with a full free...
I enjoy knowing that there's comedians doing like more comedy in a church. That makes me laugh, because I'm sure it was not like church friendly comedy.
It was hilarious. No, it was a full improv show. Anything goes. People were talking about the shit. But yeah, I think I was raised atheist, but I was like really supported to be curious about it all. And I guess I'm just in that state now where like I love hearing everyone's experience with religion, because it's such a like common thread in every human. Everyone's got their own relationship with it. And there is so much beauty that comes from it. And anytime I'm like, what do I really think about my life goals as an individual in community? It's like, I want to gather, I want to share music, I want to share stories, I want to connect. And I literally, want to make a church. And it's like, I want to find this new version of a community that like, it's just like open-ended community. But there's one end of it that's like the very secular, conservative, religion-based one. And then on the other end, it's like the culty healer, like woo-woo, really.
Woo-woo. Not the culty healer part, but I'm very woo-woo sometimes.
I'm very woo as well.
I went.
And that's why I love paganism, because
I've
connected
gone
to
down
the earth
hole
cycles.
hard.
The earth cycles and
the First Nations there. First Nations and pagans it's basically very similar.
Very similar.
Just different like stories and names.
And anything that's based in like an abundance perspective, right? Like the second you start manipulating people's perspective to like hoarding or isolating in any way that our modern society does, I'm like, that's not an actual spiritual existence. To be spiritual is to give as much as you want.
That was always
like,
the thing too, that I was like,
back to the
okay,
land.
that didn't make sense to me as a kid, because like when I did the Bible study or whatever, I was like, okay, it was sort of like the idiot thing of like, supposed to do things, what would Jesus do and all that jazz. How come everybody's doing this in this building, in this church? You know what I mean? Why are we spending money becoming a church who films their freaking services? And why are we, like there's all these like slowly becoming like mega church vibes. Like why are we, when I before, like the last one I went to with my parents was like that, where I literally witnessed it go. It was already a large church, but I watched the pastor go from preaching to performing in a big way when the cameras came out, and they just filmed their services before, and then when they started, I was like, I could see the shift even more. But even as a young child, I understood from the Bible stories that I read and stuff, like it made sense to me that if we were like talking about this dude and who was all love and light and whatever, who wanted to, love to the sex workers and heal the lepers and whatever, then why are Christian people in churches such dicks to other people? Why are you so judgmental? Why are you looking down on other people in church? Why do you act like you're better than this person because you're here doing this? And it's like you're all dunked in the same hot tub of water on their stage, okay? Unless you get forced to a sunrise baptism in Chippewa River like I did. But
and then this goes back to just like our human traits of judgment, is like coming from a place of wanting to find safety.
Yeah.
We're trying to judge our surroundings, and there's a lot of safety in numbers. That is like a natural thing for us, as we're pack creatures.
I also think religion is a big part of like, obviously I'm not around before the invention of certain organized religions, so I can't say for sure, but I feel like so much judgment has come in with organized religion.
We live in
society.
A very Christian world still.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We live in a very like good and bad, right and wrong. Like the
there's
sinner.
So much gray that just gets like.
Yeah, and that moral line is still very from that world and that existence. And the more that we break it
growing
down.
up in a church as a fidgety kid and hearing things like the devil's in you and shit, like that was told to me. But like the other, is experiencing what would be neurodivergence and whatever else, like
yeah,
and the way we
being
dealt
queer,
that
all of it. And I think
my sister growing up too, like
it's just people,
like I'm sure she might have felt safer.
Yeah, it's just people being scared of otherness, and I think again it comes from that sense of safety in numbers, and you want to feel like the people around you are accepting you,
other people, like everybody else,
and it's like if I know that this group of people is good and I can trust them, then like I am safe here. But then that gets manipulated into being like, okay, if you're not in this group, then you are bad. And the more that you like know and can spot what is bad, again, it's the destructive anxiety. Really, it's a toxic version of anxious judgment.
Yeah. In my mom's, it was just like part for her. It was like part of a repetition of a cycle, of a generational cycle situation where she was made to feel like she shamed the family when she got pregnant at a young age, and she did the old unwed mother's home thing and everything, and then she really felt like that and other things that she had done in her youth, that like somehow church was gonna take those away, or like or something, or like make it so that like we would have a better than she did, or it's something, but instead it was just more different trauma. Yeah,
it's also in a Christian world, that's the only option you're given. So it's like the only thing that you think works because it's the only, it's just such a control thing. And that's why I think when we're looking at building community and we're looking at working in leadership positions, you really have to be careful. So what are you doing this for? Are you doing this for your own elevation, or are you doing to control?
So weird. I think that's partly why I get so weird when people like get too complimentary. See, I suck at just taking a compliment in general. That's just a thing. But like if people get too complimentary, or especially a compliment where they compliment you by comparing you to someone else, but like as than that, I'm like, please don't ever do that.
No.
Like I don't like that. I don't. No one's better than anybody else. I'm just a fucking person out here making noises. Okay. Like I'm not any like I'm not being self-deprecating when I say like I'm special. Like I'm not. I'm special. I believe I'm a special human being. I have lots of gifts and love and things that are good. But I'm saying that as in comparison to anyone else, I'm nobody fucking special.
I'm not looking
Everything
down.
I am doing, you can do if you want to do it. Later probably. But like a thing is just like it's because of growing up in that church realm. I don't like any platform, like any too much of a pedestal situation. And not that I feel like I'm ever on any kind of pedestal, but I'm just very cautious of that energy because that, I think.
Oh, totally.
All right, pals. Here's another one. Another little clippet of a wonderful, talented, local scene pal. This pick is from the New Souls album. Greg Bonmichael John and the gang made a sick album, and it's still in my regular rotation, so I hope you like this tune. If you like what you hear, Greg is available to hire for coaching, and he also plays with a bunch of bands down doing the cover circuit at the pubs downtown, so go support them. And like we said before, if you're interested in sharing your tunes with us, having us share your tunes with other people, let us know. Hit us up. Show us what you got going on. And we would love to support more local pals. Thanks. Here is You're My Kind of Perfect.
I'm in love with a woman who barely knows my name. Now I know that's not her fault. I'm just too shy to say you're kind of perfect. The way you laugh just starts me up. And you're kind of perfect. But when I think about you, I get to feeling like, oh, why'd I have to fall in love with someone who doesn't know me at all? Who doesn't know me at all? Why'd I have to fall in love with someone who doesn't know me at all? Who doesn't know me at all? Yeah.
Well, again, it's judgment, and it's like there's positive judgment and there's negative judgment, but it is a really hard thing to feel like you're trying to assess these people around. You're trying to like make an opinion about them because you want to know if they're safe or not, which you'll take all of the things into play, and we compare each other. And I think when people are giving you the compliment and comparing you to someone else, it feels icky because it feels like they've judged that person in comparison to you, or vice versa. It's like airing that like icky judgment comparison thing. And yeah, it's like the more that we can just all be on the same level playing field, we should be able to talk about like when we like things and we don't like things and why, but then it should always come back from like a curious place and a place that's, have I asked myself these questions? Do I like these things in myself before I start putting them and that responsibility of perfection on other people? And then I feel like there should be, and that's what I'm trying to figure out too, is like this whole thing sprung up from like this conversation of me really being like unimpressed with someone's art, and then I was like, oh, but I also haven't made any art that's impressed me lately. And it's like you should be asking these questions about yourself before asking about
and maybe
others.
That's why you're bothered by it though.
Absolutely.
Because that's one of those things, right, where we're annoyed by what we're annoyed in ourselves.
And I was like, this motherfucker's
like,
up on stage making shit and I don't like it. It's like, why the hell am I not doing it?
Yeah, and it's
like,
really, really you're, also that's one of those things where it's like society's built us to the point to think that we need to be doing this because you're already doing so many fucking things and still you're like, oh, I need to be doing this. You know what I mean? That to ourselves because we're dicks to ourselves. But
there's also a lot of energy.
I wrote it down there so I didn't forget
Heckler?
it. But, yeah, so I was watching this their Instagram thing where it's like an Instagram channel that's just courtesy of Danny Jackson always. Her stories always send me down a fucking rabbit hole of something hilarious. Like I'll be like, oh, what's this? I gotta see the end of this reel. And then I'm like, 10 reel. But there was out of like a heckler, and I followed it back to the page to finish the clip, and the page was just all hecklers. Like it was all clips of comedians reacting to weird hecklers in the audience.
Cool.
And that actually made me think about this whole
skill.
conversation of judgment.
Yeah.
How they deal with it in real time, because obviously at a play or whatever kind of performance, you're never going to be like, that's not very good.
Dude,
some freaking cojones to be a
It's
stand-up
amazing.
comedian. It's people have in like conversations where I'm like riffing and being silly or whatever, and someone will find me funny. They'll like casually be like, "Oh, have you ever like thought about?" And I'm like, "Fuck no!" Terrifying. And like, what, you're on stage all the time? And I'm like, that is different.
It is different.
Like, how about it? Yes. Do I want to do it? No.
Yeah.
My sister's in comedy. I just say I leave that to her. I'm like, she's the comedy in the family. I'm funny by accident, not on purpose.
Yeah.
But she's purpose. I'm funny by accident. And so it's like, it's just
But we bring our comedy on stage with us.
Yeah. Like I have funny banter and whatever. Like I'm silly.
You're there for a different reason. Comedians
it's
are there
also
to put their opinions on.
They say to people that I have the of like a band, instruments, or my voice, or a performance, or like the burlesque, whatever. There's something else. It's not just me.
There's like a
saying,
safety thing.
It's like, I'm performing this art and I hope you like it. Comedy is like directly like, here's a thing and I'm waiting for you to I'm about to find out if you like it or not in real time right now.
Yeah.
If people after every song
vulnerable.
I performed either like didn't laugh, like, you know what I mean, was the goal. If there was like clapping, but people sometimes will clap by default because it's what they do. But like
as well.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
But there isn't a heckling culture as much in music.
Yeah, and I was watching how they handle it, and just like, how there's plenty of other. The one guy was like, "There's plenty of other comedians tonight, and maybe you're gonna like what they."
Yeah.
But not everything is gonna be for everyone. And that's
that's the good thing about it is
and that's what all art is. Like, not every piece of art that's gonna be out there is gonna be directed towards you, or you're gonna get everything out of it. Also, too, there's like our experiences or whatever. Like if I go to a play about this 70-year-old black woman's life experience, I might not relate to much of it. Okay, I might learn something from it because I'm watching someone else's experience. I might feel something or whatever. But even if none of those things happen, I'm still hearing someone else's story, and that is in itself is the way that our culture continues the storytelling tradition.
I know.
We're not sitting around the fire telling stories of life anymore.
No.
So our way of doing that is through performing like songs or film or the spoken word or all these different ways that that is how our generation tells stories now. And people will but TikTok and shit, like, can roast it all they want who don't like it and stuff.
It's enriching.
But it is enriching, and it is the continuation of the storytelling tradition.
Yeah.
Whether you like, and whether you like it or not, again, not everything is for everyone.
I know, and I think that's actually why comedy is so special, is because it's specifically trying to do something. It's trying to push things. It's trying to challenge narratives. It's trying to open up a conversation with the audience in front of them about common issues that, honestly, when you live in bubbles, which we do online, don't actually get challenged as much, except for like in hate comment threads, which you can just mute, and then people don't listen.
Crowd work. Half of crowd work is the hilarity of the comedian's snap judgments when he hears the answers to the people's things that he's asking.
And that's why it's so important, is because we don't put ourselves in those uncomfortable positions enough, and that's why we look at comedians as like these fucking brave, like wildly like insane people, because it's like I'm so rarely putting myself in a room of people who don't agree with me, and I'm gonna hold my own about it. And also I think in music and like performance art, I'm trying to do something for the most part that people will enjoy. I'm trying to like make pretty sounds, and I'm trying to look good, and I'm trying to like please
the goal is that people enjoy
the audience.
I remember talking to my sister about that once, and me about a show she had in particular, and how she kind of get out of the challenge of performing in a room where she knows some of those people are not there for her.
Yeah.
These like oil rigger type dudes where she's like, okay, this is the test. How's this gonna go?
Yeah.
Or like, am I gonna make them laugh? Or like, what's gonna happen?
I love
or whatever.
discomfort
Like, it's
too.
a very my sister's really good at that. always been someone who's inspired me on many levels. Like she inspired me musically years ago when I was young and getting into music, and she inspires me endlessly in just the way that she just fucking picks a thing and goes 1,000% into it and just does it like she's lived so many lives and does so many amazing things.
She's really fascinating. And I met her before I knew who you were, and that was really cool. I like saw her stand up at
Woodstuff.
No, I saw her stand up at the not the Poodle but FOD. And I loved it, and I thought it was hilarious. And then I realized you guys were related.
It's funny.
And I was like,
we were both at that same show because I remember I saw you the first time there because I was looking back through my stuff.
Yeah.
I have clips of you
Talent
at that
Tuesday.
show. I have pictures of you like singing stuff from that show, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that.
We didn't know each other.
We didn't know each other, but I had seen you play, and I knew of you because I think the name sounded familiar, but I didn't put two and two together that you were the Tasha from Blase shows. Yeah. That was always in the, but again, didn't know you very well because when you were at Blase shows, you were taking pictures of them.
I remember being like, who's this rainbow-headed girl that's gonna
to
sing?
Do your pictures? Yeah. Yeah. And
comedians hold like a space similar to a preacher where it's like they're going to like address a common relatable topic, and then they're like talking to a crowd and like trying to get people to like, you can't really line up every comedian's intention, but I think that's the actual good part about it, is everyone can have their own unique intention, and you're not going to a comedy show like you're going to church and learning how to be a good person. You're just going to a comedy show to learn how.
I'm just imagining what my sister's response to that would be in reference to her own comedy.
But I'm just like, I love the idea of people showing up to something to be curious to hear someone else's story, because like you said, like sharing stories around the fire is how we like learned, and that's like a deep human nature. Yeah,
because especially for me, it felt like I was finally getting to know so many parts of her that I like didn't get, that were like more closed off growing up. So I was like, this was really cool for me to get to like hear her comedy, because it was like getting to see inside her mind in a way that like I had always wanted to growing up, to like understand her more, or like be more connected. And like I was like, cool, this is the wall is gone, because in comedy you're like being raw and real, and you're
it's also it's a cool thing as an observer too, like as someone in the audience, because when I go to a comedy show I want to laugh for them and I like want to support them in their thing, but it's like in order to get my laugh I have to be able to relate to them, so I'm listening really actively and I'm like fully participating in their world, and you're putting yourself in their head, and you're like trying to see the world.
At the beginning of COVID, when did you move here?
2019, right before COVID.
Oh, I can't remember if that was. Do you remember the green ceiling? Did you ever go there? Man, there was this night. It was like, I can't remember the name of it, but it was the other local comedy guys used to put on this night where it was like mute and so there would be like a band and jam, and the spliff personalities, which is a bunch of members of Grapefruit is Impossible and some other folks. They would like hold guy, and then they would all hold it down, and in the of like getting notes I would go and like jam out and hang out, and the comedians would be doing stand up, and the funny thing was it was like a weed lounge too, so like they getting like even some that aren't stoners would be getting like contact high and then trying to do their jokes, which would be even more of a challenge and very funny for some of them were like, I gotta hang out outside because like otherwise I tell my jokes, and it was, but like I got like a crash course in like all these comics in town that now are like, you know, I'm still like does shows with some of these guys that I saw back in the day at the Green Ceiling when they were like, you know, just talent material at these random spaces, or like, you know, some of them were doing stuff more been around town, but and the city is chock full of like great comedians, like hilarious people. It's just really element too, like there was so much like camaraderie, and they're all like the overlap of the comedians in the band was so much so sort of sides of things, and there was more like hanging out and socializing after, and just like kind of hearing their debriefs and criticisms and stuff, and just really seeing just how nerve-wracking it can be for some, and just how like what they all get out of it as well, and just it's so funny too, just seeing how they're just as critical of themselves after a set as we musicians are after ourselves after a set. I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny.
I think trying to make people laugh is the hardest thing ever.
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
laughing is like, you have to read.
Just trying to make them cry.
But I love making people laugh during the set because they don't expect it. I love making people cry.
You like making people
I like
laugh
making
during set,
people
I like when
come.
people giggle at my
I like turning people on stage, and
I
then
like,
also just being sneak a little like intellectual quip in there, be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm smart too. I got booty and a brain.
Yeah. I always like people laugh on the banter and stuff too. But I was just also like surprising people who underestimated me, because in this, especially in the bar scene, that's why I love festivals so much.
I think
in the bar scene, you walking in as like a larger person, if you don't know, that's why when people are like, oh, everyone, I frequent places where I know a lot of people because I'm more comfortable in those places, because people aren't shitty in those places. And a lot of spaces I was in as an early musician, like, people would not acknowledge me, act as if I was invisible, like when I'm in line for a drink, like all sorts of things, just like as if I'm a piece of the furniture, a piece of the wall. I blend in, and when I do not, I am giant and colorful. You cannot tell me that I blend in. You're acting as if I'm invisible, and then I sing, and those same people are now all of a sudden interested in giving me attention or whatever. And it was something that I simultaneously would get a kick out of, but also be saddened,
horrified,
because it's just
like, oh, now I have value.
Yeah, exactly, because it's just exhausting. And then that was also reinforced the whole without music, what am I, like, without forming,
oh god,
like,
yeah,
where's my value?
Yeah, that's why being able to make people laugh means not taking yourself that seriously, and that's like soul practice work. Being able to like not take yourself that seriously in a healthy way, being able to laugh at yourself in a healthy way of like, I'm gonna disarm everyone around me by acknowledging like that I don't think of myself as holier than thou. But I think there's also a line with that too. I know a lot of comics and like performers and stuff can be like self-demeaning most of the time, and it's like you're only tearing yourself down. Like, I want to like balance that line of like, I'm gonna not take myself seriously
in comedy. Like, there's a lot of comedians who struggle super hard, and
they
the
probably
depression
the same
is
thing.
where
It's
the good jokes come from, but then it also is like,
and then it feeds itself.
You're feeding it, and see a lot, there's a lot of struggle there.
Yeah.
And then you get to a certain level of the depression where the jokes don't come anymore, where you're like, you can't, because it's a similar but different thing when you're trying to create
any kind of creator, and it's because you're using your like real raw existence as like the data to make the product. So it's okay, I'm gonna reinforce the data, I'm gonna make more data
to create
it's like the materials,
fun things than when you dive into things that are about real stuff.
And I think something that I'm really proud of being able to like access later, because I've definitely been really fucking insecure, and like it's been a journey, and it's still a journey for me, but like the clowning aspect and being able to feel like a clown but also feel actual like art. Well, clown is art, but to be able to bring in that in between of professional artist who hits the notes and gets the shit right and can hold it down, but also a complete buffoon. I feel like that line of I take myself seriously enough to do this shit, but I also don't take it seriously enough so that you don't feel like I think you could all be up here with me doing this as well, because I want to be like with the crowd, I want to be with the audience. And the more you hold yourself up here of I am like better than everyone because I'm doing this, people don't even relate to that art.
And being able to that's the thing for me, is like getting up there was always a way to show other people that they can do it too. Like, I always want to just, make it room for other people, or sing with other people, collaborate with other people. I would always invite,
and then they listen better
people
too
onto my set, and like, it's just so part of our, I think it's a ability a lot of us have as artists, especially if you're someone coming in from a corner of the world that like has to push a little harder to get out there. Like, if you're someone that was like me, who's told that like people don't want to see bodies like yours on stage and like whatever, like you have a responsibility, like once you kicked open that door for yourself, to like hold it open for somebody else, like show that, to like boost that, doing it too,
without
like,
tearing yourself down though.
And exactly.
I once got some good feedback that was like, don't point out your mistakes, because the odds are that no one else has seen them. So if you're in a performance and you're like, oh man, that was really fucking bad. Dude, the amount of times that
you'll compliment someone on their set and they'll immediately tell you what they fucked up. And if I get it when it's musician to musician, but like when you'll say anybody, you'll be like, oh, that's great, we fucked up a little bit. And be like, no, they didn't notice. They're not gonna notice until you say it.
Yeah. Yeah, let them not
And
notice.
also, just let them give you the compliment. That was the piece of advice I got once. Is because someone once told me that, like,
You just gotta say
when
thank you.
when you're
Receive
brushing off the compliment, trying to, like, whether you're uncomfortable by the compliment because you're not used to compliments, or whether you're like busy thinking about what you did wrong, you're unintentionally taking the wind out of the sails of the person who just wanted to tell you how much they enjoyed the thing you did. And also
you're also
you
withholding
might
yourself
feel
from
like
accepting
missing the
love.
point of you're missing that moment of connecting with the people who you're making art for. Because the person who enjoyed it enough to come up to you and say, hey, this had an impact on me, that's who you're fucking making the art for. That's the point. Like, also for me, the point is to get some stuff out of my body and into somewhere else, and that's a big part of it. But you're making art. The purpose of art is for it to have an effect on the world, other people, whatever. And so when someone comes up and wants to give you that compliment, have that moment genuinely. And, like, if you don't know how to take it, just be like, oh, thank you, I appreciate that so much. I, like, had to pick certain phrases to say because my damn neurodivergent brain just wanted to default into, like, oh, it's like, oh, I like yours, oh, thanks, I got it from here and there. And then you tell, like, a story no one needed. It's like a very similar thing when someone compliments you after a show and you just ramble off all these things, and you're immediately, like, they're here looking at you for that connection, and you're, like, over here with the rambles. And so I had to practice, like, especially because after a set I'm very scattered and just want to be outside cooling. I'm hot as fuck, I want to get outside, like, whatever. So I'm usually in a beeline for the door, and I realized that, like, people think I'm rushing away from talking to them. And so I had to be like, I had to either, like, say in phrases to, like, make sure they felt appreciated and that I received the compliment and appreciated it. And also sometimes I would be like, yo, I'm happy to chat, I just need to go outside because I'm hot, but you're welcome to join me. And then, like, I would have a lengthier chat outside because for me sometimes when I get off stage I just need to get right outside for a minute.
Again, it comes back to judgment. Realistically, like, we're judging ourselves, right? We judge ourselves and our art so much. So, like, when you're judging yourself, you, like, build a wall, and that wall rebounds the compliments, right? And you're not gonna let it in because you've thought of yourself as not worthy of the compliment or something. And it's really cool to hear that, like, you as an anxious being have, like, practiced being able to receive that stuff, because anytime I
it was
leave
part
a
of me, like,
performance,
it was part of my healing thing too, especially, like,
but
not just as a performer but as a human, because, like, I had to unlearn a lot of things that were put in my brain about myself, like, that weren't from me but from external.
And that's why
inputs.
I think, like, you deserve props for that too, because anytime that I leave a show, I don't actually remember how I played. I remember what people said. Realistically, that's the stuff that I hold on.
Blackout thing that happens sometimes. We're like, I don't remember
anything, and that happened at at my story time on the weekend, where I was holding all this space, and I took a walk outside because I was like, okay, people just sat and listened to me for a time, and then I came back into the house and I, like, wanted to hear people's perspective because it was a completely new art form for me, and hearing people's, like, individual, like, what they pulled out of it is, like, so validating to me too, because a lot of the time when you're performing at people, like, it was an inclusive story, but, like, you don't always know how it lands till
you were transferred. I was sitting right next to the peanut gallery. I was busy, like, really immersed in it, so occasionally I was just, like, a little sleepy and super into it, and, like, focused on, like, trying to hear, like, what piece of the story was about. Next to all the homies who were, like, here to give you all of the scenic noises.
It was amazing.
It was so great.
They were so great,
so funny.
And
they were like really loving and enjoying it, and it was exactly what some of them needed. And I remember Gracie particularly being like, oh, this is so much what I needed right now.
And that's what I want to do, is I find, like, I get really lost in these, like, mediums of, like, singer-songwriter or playwright or clown, or, like, I'm making an event or, like, a specific thing that has a lot of preconceived notions. Like, I took it back to just, I want to tell a story. And that helped me just not even care really too much about what the story was about. And then that open-mindedness helped, like, the really cool, like, energy channel through me. I was like, I actually don't want my performance to pull anyone out of the moment. I want it to add to the moment that we've created by all getting together and having a room of people that wanted to listen and connect. And I was like, that is such a gift. I need to do right by these people. So I did put, like, effort in, but it was just, like, this really cool approach. And then I was also, like, reflecting on like the lessons of my judgment on this other person's art, and it was just this really beautiful full rounded moment. And I'm so happy that I listened to other people at the end and what stuck out for them, because it was so special to me, but hearing that it affected other people as well just helped me take it home with me. And it's one of the proudest moments I've ever had.
Oh, that's
ever.
great. I love that. Yeah,
And it was so
fun.
simple.
I also loved watching the people who weren't sure what they were walking in on when they came in partway.
Me
through.
too. That's my favorite show. I
That
love making
was the
people
funniest. So I was
weirded
like,
out.
"What's happening?" Especially when
I got really
a bunch
angry.
of the peanut gallery people that were sitting next to me got up and shifted to interpretive dancing at the back.
Yeah.
And that there was like some people
There's
who
a whole
came down the
contact
stairs
jam, yeah.
at like partway through, but that was happening as you were doing the story, and they were like, what's happening?
It was
I
perfect.
love that. I love the stuff. And then like because it was 50-50 pretty much, where either people would be like, oh cool, I'm in, or people were like, I don't know what's happening, I'm gonna go back upstairs.
Yeah.
And like, not because they didn't like it, but just because they felt like they were interrupting an intimate thing that they needed to be there for the beginning of, like, you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
that moment where like, I needed to be there for the beginning of this, so I'm gonna go to it, like, you know.
And because it was like a new thing too, and I could go off about this for a lot because I'm still digesting what I learned, because this
And
just
you're like
happened a couple
dissecting.
days
It's the first
ago.
time you did it, so your kind
Yeah.
of brain is like,
I'm
mulling it all
dissecting
over.
it, but yeah, because the intention was like, it was very open-ended and it was very inclusive. I was like, I wanted to build something with the people in the room, and I was like, if you want to make noise and sounds, hell yeah, please, I want that to be part of this experience. If you want to make noise and sounds that aren't about this, just go upstairs. I take no offense. This is my first time doing this, so my expectations are completely open. So I was just trying to like have fun for me and to see other people vibing.
There was only so much space for people to be.
Yeah.
Because the best effect of it was if you were right in the thick of it, like sitting in the floor or being in that corner where we were.
Because again, I'm trying to balance this thing of like space holder, but I don't want to be that like full meditation guide person. I wanted to activate people so that they like could come with their own stories, and the fucking people dancing and moving was like inspiring me so much.
Yeah, they were killing it.
It was so fun. And that's why I'm like,
moments happening.
this group makes me want to do good art. It makes me want to challenge myself. It makes me
It is
want to
nice.
show up
Yeah.
and show out, and to know that like they might feel that way about me too, and then maybe they want to make better art because like they're
It's
inspired.
really nice to be in those scenes, because there's a lot of, because in this, you know, I have some amazing friends, but I definitely came up in a scene with some folks who like just around where I feel like I would just get roasted for doing something like that, like, you know, like it would like, but also from my era, like mocking everything was such a thing. It wasn't, but just like,
It was very
one of the things I
genuine,
hated
too.
the most growing up.
People didn't
is
like
how much
genuineness.
everyone mocked as soon as you were
Yeah.
creative or genuine or weird, like,
because there's a lot less
yeah.
authenticity too at that time too.
Yeah.
So being authentic like makes people uncomfortable because they're probably not being authentic as much.
Yeah, I used to have this like tape deck tape recorder thing with a little tiny microphone that came out of it, like a very 80s thing.
Cool.
And I used to like tell stories into it and whatever.
Aw. Yeah, man, I'm so there for story time. I
Definitely got mocked
really,
mercilessly for it. Maybe that's why I fear that I'd get mocked, but
yeah. I was definitely nervous about that too because it was something brand new, but like it
People
was
mock.
really cute. And this is the last thing that I had, but it was really cute before. So I had like I had a 10-minute like self alone time in the bathroom right before I was nervous peeing for an hour. And then I like left the bathroom and I was like, okay, I am worthy of holding this space. I'm going to ask for it. And then I went around the whole party and was like, hi guys, story time starting. Hello, story time starting. And everyone was like, oh, I'm so excited. Nobody had any idea what it was, but people were stoked.
I was on the deck and I was watching you because you were sitting I was on the porch with the smokers, and I was watching through the window as you were kind of in the kitchen. You were like sitting next to someone, and I could see the look on your face where you were like, I think it might have been that moment actually when you were having that thought, because it looked like I was like, I think she's supposed to start soon. And then I was like, oh, I feel like she's about to like ask people downstairs, but like, you know, where like it looked intently in someone's conversation, but then I was like, oh, she might just be waiting for a polite moment to like insert in the conversation and be like, hey, like I'm gonna start the story time now, like da-da-da.
It's
for
hard to
you
do
to
that,
not
man.
be sitting next to that person, because I
Yeah.
knew when you weren't sitting there anymore then it was starting and I had to go back inside. So I was like standing outside just having some fresh air, and then I was like, I gotta go, I think Tasha's starting soon.
You know me so good. And I want to add one more thing too, but at the end of the whole thing, and this is something I'm going to work on, When I finished the story, I just said thank you and then immediately stood up and just wasn't on the stage, but I was like in front of it because it wasn't really a stage. It was like a big living room. I just didn't know where to be. I didn't know what to do with my body at that point because it wasn't like a show.
That's when you laid down and then you thought I was
yes,
massaging
so
your
then
head,
I
yeah.
laid down and immediately I laid down right in front of Kady and Isaac and someone just starts massaging my head and I go, Kady.
The way you said it so confidently too, like you were so sure
I
it
know
was me.
exactly who.
It could have been. It would have been. I was.
You were my two like most comfort people.
It
was Isaac.
It was Isaac.
That was a carpenter's man's hands.
Oh yeah,
and I was just like, that's definitely Kady.
I do like to give a head massage.
He's my boyfriend, and I thought it was your hand.
But I was right there before you laid down, so I get it. And I would totally be like, "Oh, good job, you need to de-stress." I do like to give a head massage. I like massage trains all the time back in the day.
It was really grounding because I didn't know what to do with myself after. Because again, it was a new art form for me, and I know the rules of a music set. I don't really know the rules of like story time, and I think it's gonna get so much better.
A lot of people were like still kind of sitting and do things, so to go anywhere else, you would have been like stepping over a bunch of people because people didn't immediately dissipate.
And I didn't want to leave either because the vibes were so good. Anyways, I learned a lot. I fucking faced a lot of judgment, and I tried something new and scary and let myself not judge myself, or tried really hard not to. And that was really cool. But now I'm like, okay, judgment is such a teacher, and this like inner dialogue that we have of like we're trying to assess everything is like it's teaching us so much. And just to wrap all of this thing is like all the complexities of where that's come from and the times where it's been out of balance, like church and religion and stuff, and like the reasons that we're scared of it is probably because of a lot of that stuff, right? Like when we get it wrong and when it hurts people and when it gets used to control people. And I want to keep this conversation going with so many different kinds of artists because I want to hear how people are dealing with their judgments, because we like want to preach this like open-minded all the time accepting, but like you're going to run into people you don't agree with, you're going to get into conflict.
Yeah, I definitely have not been open-minded all the time accepting.
No, we can't agree with you can't.
I've had my
no, and I don't want to live in a world where I don't see anything different or feel anything different, or I don't want to be satisfied all the time either, because then you're in the velvet coffin and it's like I want to be challenged, but how do I deal with that in a healthy way? And yeah, that's been my big learning of the last 2 weeks. And I
find there's like I'm walking a fine line because of the brain that I have, where like consistently be challenging myself as an artist and stuff like that, but my soul and parts of my brain really need peace and comfort to a certain level. Do you know what I mean?
The foundation
of the whole like this,
just being alive
and like, you know, you're doing your CPTSD and stuff where like your system just doesn't let you relax that often. That like, it's so sweet.
I'm
when
still
you can
learning
just
that.
chill out and like let yourself be in that comfortable space for a hot minute, and then like it like you don't have to stay there forever. Like there's still always going to be challenges you can pick out for yourself. You know, I think fun, like, because I've definitely I've done that for myself, where I've like allowed myself to sort of enjoy the comfort in some ways, and then choose the challenges I'm gonna have for myself, rather than just, and I think, consistently throwing myself at challenges.
I think Victoria's a good spot to do that, because there's such a foundation of island time. We are here to like, there's a lot of people here who are healing, and we're like in that healing journey together, because a lot of people aren't from here that we're
depending on how
woo
you get, Victoria attracts a certain type of people because of its weird.
I know, and I don't all want to be like trauma bonded, but if it could teach us anything, if it could teach us anything, and I think that's honestly part of my challenging myself as an artist,
that is how
to
people
slow.
bond. That is how people connect. We bond through and joyful experiences and memory, like building core memory experiences together. Things like Tawtry, things like Otherworld and stuff like that, and Tawtry when it happened and stuff like that. And then we also bond through these traumatic experiences, like, you know, like, and I are bonded like fucking so hard through lots of things, but a big thing that bonds us is different traumatic experiences that we either went through together or went through similar things at a similar time, paralleled.
But if you could wrap up what your grand view is on judgment,
I'll tie it all together in a neat little church line bow. Do as I say, not as I do.
Mm.
Don't judge you like I judge me. Don't judge other people like you judge yourself. I don't know. Being silly. But I really do think, because my brain immediately served me that line. Do as I say, not as I do.
Hey, you are.
But to sum it up, it's an ongoing thing. I don't know if it's a thing you can sum up that easily, but I think
Like, where are you at right now with it? Maybe?
With my own judgment, I want to do it less. Like, I want to judge myself less, but a certain degree of it is healthy because, again, like when we have conversations about accountability, like some judgment of myself, self-criticism helps me take accountability for things that that I could have done more had I realized the power was in my hands at the time, rather than judging myself and feeling like it was out of my control or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
I think it basically, I don't know. For me, I don't find myself judging other people's art necessarily that much. I'll maybe like I find myself being judgmental of comics who punch down, or like that. Like I tend to find something and get something out of like let's play, even if it's just me like observing the joy they get out of it, like because a lot of the time too, as someone who like constantly tries to figure out like why my brain does XYZ and how to make it not do XYZ, observing other people and like I'm also like curious. It's like I'm accumulating data where I'm like I am witnessing you be free and tell the story and like do these things, try this new thing, and to see how that experience is for you. Whereas like I'm too busy observing and thinking for like just fucking giving her and doing the thing to bother like finding a judgment with it. And I could take that, obviously, like you're my friend and I knew kind of what was and what you were working towards it and stuff, so there's a little bit of a different element there. But even when I'm out at like a random show when I don't know what I'm expecting or whatever, like I feel like there's always something good you can take away. But again, like it's always like when you feel that judgment, like there's a question somewhere, you know?
Yeah. Be curious.
What's that curiosity? There's always the curiosity, man. I feel like someone really tried a conspiracy theory, gaslight people, and like, curiosity killed the cat. I don't think it did, motherfucker. You know?
But it probably got that cat to a really cool place. I think that's some
gaslighting bullshit. Like, they're like, don't be curious. We don't want them curious. Let's tell them all that curiosity killed the cat. You know, where did that even come from? Like, tell me the history. Tell me, someone who knows this fact.
Have you ever owned a cat? They're so dumb.
Yeah, but they're so dumb and somehow live. Like, they don't their curiosity never seems to kill them.
But I watch
very
my
rarely,
sweet little angel
I
walk
guess
into traffic regularly, and I'm
brother
like,
would
girl.
be like, what about the cats we had?
Yeah.
I had a bunny when this happened, but they had cats as kids, and I think they did actually probably die of curiosity or something.
Yeah, curiosity
got in traffic or something, but
leads to an open mind, and open-mindedness leads to an open heart.
Curiosity
and
might kill the cat, but we're not fucking cats, so
we're not cats. We're scared little monkeys, and that's fear can be a teacher sometimes, and other times it does not serve anyone. So don't give it too much time, and just stay you, and don't be afraid to make the art just because someone might react poorly like I did, because that's not gonna happen all the time.
Make the art for the sake of making the art, and all like, know that, so what if someone doesn't like it, because also like there's a lot of someones out there, and like you're gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but you're gonna be somebody's fucking shot of espresso, and like you can also just make the art for you. Make the art for the sake that, like, getting it out of your brain and into the world is fucking satisfying.
And if you are being yourself and you are putting yourself out there and people don't like it, that's because you are being fully authentic and you're not following the fucking status quo.
And you're also just in the wrong crowd of people.
Yeah,
because like there's like, and as someone who has dipped my toe in a lot of different circles of people, and this sounds weirder than I meant it to, but
We'll get into that on another episode.
Right? The Venn diagram of groups of friends in the city is a giant circle for me. I have, I have over a lot of different circles.
Me too.
And it's because I'm fascinated by humans. I love meeting different people. I love connecting with different people. But
it makes you more interesting to be interested in a lot of different things.
More than ever do I know that there are people out there that are and even some of your closest friends in the world might not be the people to appreciate your art because they might just have different tastes in the art, and like that's the thing. It's sometimes the people who appreciate your art are in a whole other pocket, and you just gotta find
You're
it.
never gonna find your audience if you don't make the art in the first place.
That's the thing. You gotta make it, and it's gotta make its way out of your bedroom sometimes. But you know, unless the purpose that you're doing it is just for your own benefit.
I think I am fully squished. How about you? Yeah. Thank you for going into that deep end of many things I did not expect. We went through dreams and religion, and now we're in. I don't know where we are.
What are we going to talk about? And then it just every time we sit down, it's just like blah blah blah.
Thank you for letting me share my story. I wanted to share that story because it really affected me.
No, it's good. I forgot that was one of the things we were going to talk about, and I just mean I think it's funny that like. About like, oh yeah,
where we're going,
some topics.
We don't need roads.
Yeah, we just as soon as we hit record, it's just like easy.
Yeah,
here's a bunch of conversation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for listening to Squish.
Yeah, thank you so much, and happy holidays. We'll see you in the new year.
Yeah, hopefully this comes out. Maybe
this will probably be out
after
the new year. So whatever, it's still valid.
I'm not that fast at editing.
No, and we have other ones ahead of this, so it's is what it is. So it's just valid because it's currently the holidays.
Schmolidays. Try and do nothing this holidays. Try and do as little as possible.
Relax.
That's what I'm gonna.
She says to herself.
I'm trying. I have a week off.
I believe in your ability to chill.
I'm gonna be editing this episode, most of it.
Yeah, the editing's fine because you can like edit laying down or chilling. You can, but I'm editing too. But like, just
bye.
Bye. We love you.
We're gonna keep talking forever.
We love you.
We love you. Squeeze. Boom.
We want to thank everyone who made Squish happen. Specifically, we would love to thank Elena Alstrom and Renata Baldwin for the wonderful background music for our intro and outro, as well as all of our vocal squishers who offered your cute little voices.
So adorable. We love you so much.
I want to thank Kady for editing together our intro and outro soundtrack.
And Tash for doing the video editing and a bunch of great graphic design work.
That's right, we're thanking ourselves because we fucking did this bitch. Yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around, and we hope to catch you on the next episode.
Heck yeah, thanks to everyone for being part of it.
Love you.
Love you.